How's it going, everybody? In this video, I'll be laying out the tips and tricks that I wished I knew before starting Path of Exile for the first time. This should prepare players that want to get into the game, but the thought of learning PoE's vast reservoir of game mechanics seems overwhelming and overly complex. After watching this video, you'll be prepared to overcome Path of Exile's basic mechanics, so that when you are ready, you can take on Path of Exile's more challenging and dangerous mechanics. My name's Michael, and I spent a lot of time seeking out the most helpful tips and tricks for new players coming into Path of Exile, so that you can just hop straight into the game, leveling, looting, and surviving your way to becoming Path of Exile Expert. So let's hop into it and take that journey together. Alright, so the first topic we're going to be talking about are leagues. So when you're first creating a character, you have to choose between the standard leagues or the challenge leagues. So the first league type is the standard league, which offers no modifiers. Then there are the challenge leagues, like Synthesis, for instance, that usually lasts about 3 to 4 months. Now, when a challenge league ends, your characters and their entire stash is just transferred over into the parent standard league. I would recommend, as a new player, starting with the challenge leagues because they'll offer the most content, and they'll offer you a fresh start if you're starting right at the beginning of a new league. You'll also notice here, there are 2 different options for the standard league here. They've got Hardcore and Solo Self-Found. So Hardcore, all that means is if your character is killed while playing the game, it's just automatically transferred to the standard league. And then for Solo Self-Found, all that means is that when you enable that option, you're not able to trade or party with other player characters. So I wouldn't normally recommend Solo Self-Found for new players. However, you're totally welcome to choose that if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a challenge. Now for the challenge leagues, you do have the regular Synthesis league right now, or the Hardcore Synthesis, and the same thing with Hardcore for this one is if your character dies, you're just transferred over to the standard league. So just keep that in mind and you should be fine. All right, next up, character classes. Path of Exile uses 3 main stats in their game. You've got Strength, Dexterity, and Intelligence. So each of Path of Exile's classes are associated with a specific stat. For instance, the Marauder here is strength based, since he'll have a lot of raw physical power. Or you also have the Witch, who is intelligence based and will do a lot of arcane power. And there are some other options as well. There's Dexterity, which is for fast attacking, sort of like a rogue or ranger. A big thing to note with the classes as well is choosing a different class really only affects where they start in the passive skill tree, which is important to note when deciding on what kind of build you're trying to make. Now, there are 7 total classes in Path of Exile. However, only 6 of the classes are unlocked from the beginning of the game. The Scion you have to unlock as you play. The reason for this is because the Scion is kind of a jack of all trades on where she begins in the passive skill tree, so builds are usually a little bit more complex and not really recommended for beginners. All right, next topic is going to be the passive skill tree. So the passive skill tree is a large network of stat nodes, passive skill nodes, and keystone nodes. So the passive skill tree looks daunting, I know, but it's actually a lot simpler than it might seem, as the passive skill tree is divided into 3 sections, more or less, each section focusing on strength, dexterity, and intelligence nodes. So while playing the game and leveling up, you're going to gain 99 skill points from levels, and 22 to 24 skill points from quests. You do get refund skill points, as you can see right here. However, it's a limited resource, and so if you make too many mistakes, it's going to cost you a lot to try and sort that out. Each class is also offered more customization with the Ascendancy classes, and here is their Ascendancy nodes. You unlock your Ascendancy class after you complete the Labyrinth for the first time. And then as you complete each version of the Labyrinth, you'll gain more Ascendancy skill points, which just makes it that much more important to make sure that when you're playing through the game, you complete each trial of Ascendancy as you come across it. So as a new player, I would actually highly recommend hopping online, finding some builds on the forums. There are a lot of player-friendly builds that you'll want to look through and see what kind of catches your interest. And that'll make your life a lot easier trying to learn the passive skill tree. Because like I said, it's not as complex as it seems, but there are a lot of nodes, and it's just going to be better for you to follow along with somebody who's already tried the build and knows that it works. There are a lot of beginner-friendly builds on the Path of Exile forums, as well as a lot of other resources that might make your life easier, so I'll link those in the description below. Alright, on to our next topic, which are going to be skill gems. So, different from the passive skills from the passive skill tree, we have active skills. Skills that take effect, more or less, immediately after the player uses them. In order to use these skills, they need to be equipped on your equipment, such as armor, helmets, etc. They come in the form of skill gems, which are also based on the 3 primary stats: intelligence, strength, and dexterity. Skill gems mostly come in 3 different colors: red for strength, green for dexterity, and blue for intelligence. However, occasionally you'll come across white skill gems and white sockets. We'll talk about that in a second. But the skill gems need to be socketed into your armor, like I said before. And they need to be socketed into sockets that correspond to the color of the skill gem being socketed. So for instance, I have my Stormbrand socket here. You can see it's a blue skill gem, intelligence based. I had it socketed into a blue socket right here. So that'll fit right in. Now if I tried to put it into like a green socket right here, when I try and do that, it doesn't work. Just keep that in mind when you're gathering your skill gems and trying to find equipment that might work for you. If you did find a white skill gem or a white socket, then any color of skill gem or socket, respectively, would work. Now, as far as skill gems goes, there are active skill gems and support skill gems. Active gems give players a skill that they can use at will, more or less, and support gems give bonuses to the active skills that they're linked to. Now keep in mind there must be a link between the sockets in your armor for the active skill and the support skill to interact. Skill gems also gain experience and level up as your character earns experience. Once a gem has earned enough experience to level up, an indicator at the right hand side of your screen will appear and allow you to level up your gem. While not super important for beginners, there may be times you actually don't want to level up your skill gems, so just keep that in mind. Gems can naturally level up to level 20. Now there are exceptions to this, however for the purposes of this guide, we're not going to cover that in this video. Alright, so the next topic we're going to cover is currency in Path of Exile. Now currency in Path of Exile does not function traditionally as it does in other games. There are many different types of currency as well, and each one has a specific function or purpose. Now, some currency upgrades items, such as the Orb of Chance, it upgrades a normal item into a random rarity, or we also have Scrolls of Wisdom, which identifies an unidentified item, like the circlet here. Now, there are dozens of currency types, each with their own function. There are also many different recipes that can be used at a vendor, meaning that when a certain combination of items is sold at a vendor, different things can happen. I'll leave a link to a vendor recipe list. Now for beginners, this isn't going to be super important, but it's something that you can definitely look through and kind of get a gauge on what different types of things are possible. And for beginners, I also just recommend picking up all the currency that drops, but if you're not sure if you should be using a currency or not, just don't. Now, currency is also super important for player trading. However, that's not a topic we're going to cover in this video today. All right, so on to our next topic, loot filters. Path of Exile has a lot of loot, and a lot of it just isn't good. So for new players, this can become very confusing, and your inventory might become completely full way too often. This is where loot filters come in. A loot filter customizes the UI of the game to emphasize different items based on the settings that you have laid out. A loot filter customizes the UI of the game to emphasize different items based on the criteria that you've set. Now this will be a tremendous help for new players trying to figure out what might be valuable and what might not be. And this will also keep your inventory from becoming too bloated. And as you can see here, I've got different items that are highlighted in different ways. And this is based on the way that the loot filter has been set up to emphasize different items. As you can see here, I went to my options, I went to the UI settings, and then scrolled all the way down to the bottom, and this is where the list of item filters are going to go. And now if I clicked on that, I can change the strictness of the loot filter that I have set up right now. I recommend going to filterblade.xyz and downloading the NeverSinks loot filter as a baseline. As you play the game, you'll start to learn what kind of items are important to you, in which case the NeverSinks loot filter is really easy to customize based on your own needs. I'll add the link down in the description on how to download and set up a loot filter. All right, so on to our next topic, resistances. So in your character sheet under the defense tab here, you'll be able to see all of your elemental resistances. These resistances affect the damage taken from their respective sources, lowering the damage based on the value of your resistance. Now, each elemental resistance is soft capped at 75%, but keep in mind there are ways you can increase that cap, but we'll talk about that in a later video. And as you play the game, you'll just want to keep in mind that you'll want to try and have your resistances capped at 75% as early on as you can, just because the game is balanced for 75% capped resistance. So if you don't have those capped, your life will be a lot harder. Now, without spoiling too much, you can't have more than 75% resistance. As you can see here, I actually have 85% cold resistance. However, only 75% of that is effective right now. Now, this is important later on in the game, so just keep that in mind. Also, you notice here that I have chaos resistance. So this is not super important early on in the game, so for now, just don't worry about it. All right, so our next topic are gonna be flasks. Each character can have up to 5 flasks equipped at one time. Flasks perform many different functions, but for beginners and then the early stages of the game, they'll mostly be used to heal your health and mana. Most of these flasks recover your resources over time, meaning that your health or mana is not recovered instantly upon use. So just beware and keep an eye out on your health and mana as often as you can. Now, flasks have a set number of charges before they run out of uses. As you can see here, my life flask has 30 charges maximum, and it uses 10 charges for each use. So that means I can use it 3 times before it runs out. Now, to regain charges, for the most part, you kill monsters. And as you kill monsters, you'll gain charges so you can continue to use your flasks. One quick note for beginners is Quicksilver flasks early on will be super helpful, as they give you a pretty large boost to your movement speed. So make sure while you're in Act 1 that you do the side quest, Mercy Mission, as that will grant you a Quicksilver flask as a quest reward. All right, on to our next topic, stash tabs. As you play the game, you might start to run out of room on your character's inventory, as well as your stash. Now, Path of Exile's microtransaction system revolves around upgrading your stash space, as well as specialized stash tabs. Now, if you play the game long enough and decide that you're going to be spending a lot of time with Path of Exile, then buying some stash tabs are going to make your life that much easier. And they're fairly inexpensive as well. Now, there are many benefits for purchasing a stash tab, but for a beginner, I would definitely recommend getting a currency tab. As you can see here, the currency tab organizes all of my currency and makes it that much easier to sort and find. Now, I might also recommend buying a couple premium stash tabs as well, which will make player trading a lot simpler, but we'll have more on that in a later video. Now that you have a better understanding of how to better survive Path of Exile when you're just starting out, let me know down in the comments if I missed something or if you want to hear more about a specific topic. I also stream live on Twitch every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evening, so be sure to head over there, say hello, and join us as we continue our journey to becoming a Path of Exile expert. See you next time. I'm out.